Big and breaking news that we've been following today here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, and that is the, I guess, further clarity of what's going on with what we understood previously to be some sort of settlement between the city and Chief of Police Johnny Jennings. So we have our Julie Kay, who's been following this saga from the very beginning, joining us now here in the Live Impact News studio with some of the new information we're getting. So I know that we've been kind of referring to this previously as a settlement because we didn't have anything officially confirmed from the city, but now we're seeing this seems to be more of like a separation agreement, and we're actually getting some dollar figures here and more details about the settlement.
Yeah, this is the only real clarification we have gotten thus far. It's a $305,000 agreement, as you mentioned, with Chief Jennings. And I do want to make clear, because I've seen a lot of chatter on social media, this is the same alleged settlement that we've been talking about. This is not a separate, oh, he then decided to retire and now we're paying him more. This is the settlement that we've been discussing, or the payout that we've been discussing the entire time. But we did not know the number figure. We knew it was between $100,000 and $300,000 range. This is $305,000. And what's interesting too is that this actually came from Chief Jennings. It didn't come directly from the city necessarily. The city says he worked directly with the city attorney's office to make sure that he is able to make this announcement. This is what the state auditor was pushing for, that they release this information. But the city is making clear, you know, this is Chief Jennings making this. He decided to be transparent. Of course, at the same time, this is also his retirement announcement. So at the end of the year, he will be done with his tenure as the chief of police. He says he's very proud of the work he's done. In fact, he actually planned to retire earlier, but wanted to help CMPD get through some challenging times, he said in a statement last night. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this information that we got today, so we're just kind of sifting through it as the day goes on.
Yeah, and kind of an interesting dynamic too. The news broke over this holiday weekend, and so we're seeing some of the folks who might usually comment on this type of situation. They're kind of pausing as we all observe Memorial Day, and they're basically saying we're not going to comment at this point. So really just trying to piece together what happened. I know that many of us in media ended up getting some of these details from the CMPD chief. Did Jennings indicate why he was going ahead and basically putting this information out himself? Did he indicate that in any sort of communications?
This was an effort, from what I've read, for transparency. And of course, this had been kind of blasted all over the state. As I mentioned, the state auditor was investigating. The state auditor did actually release a statement today. That's one of the few pieces of information we've been able to gather this Memorial Day. State auditor saying this was the right choice, and they will be working with the city and Chief Jennings as they wrap up their investigation. But I do think there was quite a bit of external pressure, and Chief Jennings made it clear that this was coming from him, as did the city. Because they, per the Personnel Privacy Act, the city cannot, they say, release this information themselves. So that's why they're saying it took a little bit of time between working with Jennings and the city attorney's office to make sure that this was able to be released.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of curious too, because every time we kind of talk about the story, we got to recap how we got to this point, and it's like a long storyline. We've been following this bit by bit, you know, over the last several months, if not a couple of years at this point, if we look back to this outer carrier vest dialogue. Did the chief's communications indicate, you know, how the settlement came about, in the sense of what his complaints were, concerns with either what the city did to him, or, you know, we've heard former Councilman Tark Bakari's name come up in kind of, you know, the impetus of the settlement. So was there further clarity on that front?
So that is something that we're still working through, and I'm glad you mentioned Tark Bakari, because he's the one I'm really waiting to hear from, how he's going to react to the chief releasing this information. So as you mentioned, this happened over a year ago now, April 29th last year, the deadly officer shooting here in Charlotte. That's when that both private and public push between Tark and the chief of police was happening. Tark wanted these outer carrier vests for the officers. The chief is pushing back. This was happening publicly, but it was really the private text messages that we thought led to this settlement. And that is kind of the clarity of how did we transition from this alleged settlement being over these, what the chief said was defamatory text messages from Tark Bakari, to this is now a retirement agreement and this is planned. So that's kind of the transition that we are hoping to hear more about from council members. Reaction we're hoping to hear from Tark Bakari, from the mayor, That transition, I think, is going to be really interesting. Tomorrow night is the city council meeting. It got pushed back. Usually it's on Mondays, but of course it's Memorial Day. So I'm wondering what that's going to look like in terms of discussion tomorrow. Last time this kind of came to light at the beginning of the city council meeting, the mayor did address it and said, we're going to move forward. She brought in some other council members to say, this person's going to help me with this, and we're going to figure out how we can be more transparent and cooperative working forward. I'm curious to see if that's going to be something that's addressed tomorrow. But as of right now, I have not heard back from any of the council members that I've reached out to, nor the mayor. The city, as we mentioned, is helping us out today. They are getting back to us, but in terms of the council members themselves, I have not heard any clarification.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to point out too, this is coming kind of during a tumultuous time for the city overall, because not only have we been dealing with this storyline, with the settlement with the police chief, the state auditor investigation, there have been calls now, you've reported on, the mayor's facing some backlash, and then separately, we have the whole situation with Councilmember Tijuana Brown, which we've reported on last week. So, I mean, there's just like a lot of stuff going on in Charlotte city government, it seems like, to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and at first it was kind of all intertwined. Of course, the calls for the mayor to resign from the GOP, the 12th District GOP, that is in response to all of this with the lack of transparency accusations and the corruption allegations because of this settlement slash payout slash now agreement. That was all related. The situation with Tijuana Brown, where she's now being accused of misusing federal COVID funds, that's entirely separate. So we've got multiple different things going on here, and it's going to be interesting to see how much of it is addressed tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly be watching for sure. We'll keep an eye on that meeting. We'll have that for folks here on Live Impact News. There are actually a couple items we were interested in hearing, but yes, to your point, it would be interesting to see if something organically bubbles up, during that meeting regarding this particular situation. So, Julie, remind us when we can see a reporting as folks keep it here on WCNC Plus.
4, 5, and 6 tonight.
All right. Thank you so much for keeping an eye on this, and as always, for stopping by the Live Impact News studio. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll, of course, see you with any new updates, and folks, keep it here on WCNC Plus. Of course, Live Impact News at 4 o'clock transitions to our normal evening newscast, and as you heard from Julie, we'll be having live reports on that and, of course, other news of the day. So on that note, we did want to mention that we are keeping an eye on any new details that will come from this CMPD chief settlement situation. We are expecting to hear in just a few moments from the reporter who actually broke the story. And this is a Charlotte Optimist article that we saw, where not only we had the first details of the separation agreement, if you will, that were released, but also Chief Jennings himself reflecting on the situation and also his time with CMPD, and at a certain point before the creation of CMPD with Charlotte Police, because he has been with the agency, if you will, throughout its various forms for decades at this point. So we wanted to bring in that reporter, Michael Graff, once again with the Charlotte Optimist. Michael, you were the person who broke this story and really answered some questions that a lot of folks were trying to get to the bottom of regarding the settlement, because so far, as we pointed out with the state auditor's investigation, the state auditor himself had noted that a lot of the details were just coming out, piecemeal on social media, and this was like the first confirmation that we had from an official that there was some money that was settled upon, and now we know a bit more, of course, about the arrangement. So Michael, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
If you will, because you got a chance to speak with the chief, break down, if you will, his explanation, because he explained to you why he decided to be forthcoming with this information, whereas, as we mentioned up to this point, we had basically been seeing city officials saying, no, this was a closed door session, we don't have to disclose this information. But the CMPD chief sounds like took some steps of his own to make sure that this information got out to the public.
Yeah, I mean, he was certainly concerned with how the story was playing out as it was coming. It was trickling out. Reports were coming out, piecemeal, like you said. It was, and some of it wasn't completely accurate because people were getting it from leaks and things like that. And so I think what he saw, in his words were, he saw some public trust breaking down, and he thought that, his exact words were something like, "I could releasing this is more important for the public than it is for me to keep it secret anymore." Um, and there were, but I don't know that it was purely out of pure instincts. I mean, there was certainly a state auditor's investigation that was about to happen, as announced last week. So there was pressure on that end, and the public. One good thing about the way we have a setup of a system of government is that when the public really, really wants something, it does put pressure on public officials to release it. And I think Chief Jennings spent last week trying to figure out how he wanted to release it. Was it just a press release? Was it a press conference? Things like that. And Chief Jennings, is not, he's comfortable at press conferences, but sometimes I think he thinks that he's not able to tell his full story. And out of nowhere, I heard from them last late Wednesday night, and I had told them, I said, if you would ever like to go on the record and have a longer conversation about it, I would like to do that. Um, but I'm no pressure or anything like that from my end, because I know there were a bunch of other reporters who knew the story far better than I did, and I want to give credit to all of them: the folks at WCNC, the folks at WBTP, SOC, everybody all around town has done or at WFAE has done terrific work reporting on this story. But my venue is more that I can just sit down with people for a long period of time and have 2, 3 hour conversations to try to get the full picture. Um, and what I like to do is try to see, what is it in a person's background that informs how they make decisions today, especially our leaders. And in this case, by talking to Chief Jennings about his entire life story, I could almost see how he found himself in this position today, to where he was not, he was brought up in a military family and played football. And there are certain kind of rules of engagement that he has followed his entire life. And those rules don't really apply to social media or to the 2 minute story on the news. And I think he just felt more comfortable sitting down and having a conversation about it rather than just than having a press conference about it.
I mean, I felt like your article was so thorough, to your point of being able to sit down and have a multi-hour conversation with the chief on this matter. There were a couple of really interesting, points that I saw that bubbled up. There was an analogy about, police chiefs in major cities essentially being on a chair basically with a bomb in it. I guess that was the analogy that was posed in your article. Could you elaborate on that analogy? And I mean, it painted a picture of police chiefs realizing that at a certain point they might run into public scrutiny, and then the analogy was that they had to get off the chair before the bomb went off, if you will.
Yeah, so he's part of an organization called the Major City Chiefs Association or organization or something like that. I don't have the exact term in front of me, but he's a part of this organization that only includes chiefs from other big cities throughout the country. And I think he has found them to be, or he said, he's found them to be some of the most helpful people he can talk to, because as he put it to me, and I don't think this quote made it in the story, but he said, the only person who knows what it's like to be a chief is another chief. And I think I understand what he meant by that. I have a very close friend of mine, one of my closest friends in the world, was an exemplary officer in the Navy. And he climbed up through the ranks to captain, and his next phase was to become an admiral. And what he saw in that process was going to be a lot of politics. He was going to have to go to DC a lot. He was going to have to deal with that a lot. So what my friend decided to do was retire. Well, Chief Jennings decided to go ahead and step into that arena, and I think that's where the camaraderie comes in with the other chiefs. They understand, whether it's in Dallas, or in Nashville or in Charlotte, they're all dealing with pressure from their officers. They all have thousands of officers underneath them who look to him to look to them to lead their organizations, but they're also dealing with the politics of city council folks, and they have to, um, in order to get funding, in order to get, or in order to have programs approved and things like that, they have to play the political game and get people on their side and build consensus around among city councilors and the mayor and the city manager and things like that. So I think that's what that sort of small fraternity of people is for him. It's somebody he can go to say, how did you build enough support for this initiative in your local government? And but that analogy did come up, and that's from a very close friend of his within the organization. He didn't name names, but he said, yeah, he said, it feels like we're all sitting in a chair with a bomb on it, and we just hope to get up before it goes off. And, you know, that he's going to get up now.
Yeah, and I guess if we could talk a bit more about that, the other item that I saw, that your article pointed out was the fact that it seemingly the chief had been thinking for a while about retiring, and because of various events that kind of were, I don't want to say out of his control, but that weren't really directly related to him, he decided that he was going to stay, and he ended up staying throughout, a good period of time, and now has come up to the situation where we understand the settlement and the fact that he'll be stepping down, and obviously the timing with all that we know with the state auditor's investigation, et cetera. It appears as though, the timing, is because of all of the public scrutiny, but it sounded like the chief was thinking about stepping down for a while at this point.
Yeah, he had. I mean, there were conversations about his retirement much earlier this year. I know that a lot of city councilors and the county city manager had talked to him about it. Um, Chiefs don't last long anymore. He told me that the average tenure of a chief in that major city chiefs association was 2.5 years. It used to be 8 years. So he is now one of the senior members, one of the senior police chiefs in this country, and he's only been here 5 years. Um, but yes, he could have retired actually in 2020 before he even took the job. He had enough service to get his 30 years and to get his pension. He actually had a job offer in Greenville, South Carolina, to become the police chief there. And I don't know how widely that was known locally. The paper there did report it because he was one of the finalists and it was public. But so he had that job offer. He decided to stay here, he said, because he wanted to basically finish his career on the team he started with. Just kind of a goal, I guess, of a lot of people who move up in the ranks of the police department. He also wanted to retire. He also was set to, and I don't even want to say wanted, he was planning to retire last year in 2024. And then the terrible events of April 29th, 2024 happened when 4 officers were killed on Galway Drive in East Charlotte. And he decided then, I can't leave this police force now. I have to see this department through it. And so he decided he was going to stay on another year. So yes, I mean, I do think in the back of his mind, there's a part of the chief that is, he's very concerned about he's very thoughtful about his legacy. I don't Concern might be a different word, but he's very thoughtful about his legacy. He thinks about it a lot. I think I could see that in the way he talked about his former college football coaches. Actually, he really admired the people who coached him in college, and he thought about their legacy, and so he just sort of sees the world that way, um, for better or worse. And so I think he also thinks that he's also a fixer, and he thinks that he should stay on to see people through things. And he kept saying in the interview, one thing I've learned is there's actually no good time to retire. There's no good time to say goodbye. And I think one of the things that was very human to me, because I feel like we've all felt that, whether it's you at the station or me in my career at Axios before this or anywhere else. Like, we've all kind of felt that feeling before, like when you leave a place that you like because you have a better opportunity, you want to stay and make sure that the place you're leaving is taken care of. And so sometimes we stay too long. We don't take 2 weeks, we take 8 weeks or something like that. Well, he's done more than that. He's taken an extra 2 years essentially. And it created, not to analyze him too much, but it did create a conflict in his brain where he was saying, I have given up a lot. He can make more money in the private sector. Think about what managers make. He leads a 2,000 person department. So in the private sector, a manager of a 2,000 person department probably makes more than his $280,000 a year salary. Um, and so I think he was thinking, I've given up a lot for this police force. And there's a part of him that just kind of felt burned about how the past year has played out. Um,
I mean, speaking of that feeling, I guess, of being burned, the way you put it, being burned, did he reflect at all on, whatever it was, the ultimate words, actions, decisions that led him into this settlement? Because I know we talk a lot about the text messages between him and former Councilman Tark Bakari, and I saw in the article the fact that he said it wasn't about the text messages. He said it was about something different. So what did he tell you?
Yeah, he said it was about defending the future police chiefs and future department heads. Charlotte is very clear in how it's set up in system of government. Their city manager reports to city council, so do two other positions. But city council is effectively the city manager's boss, and that's Marcus Jones in this case. All the other department heads report to Marcus Jones, the city manager. And so he's a very rules of order type of person, and I think and I know he felt like he was in a position to where he wanted to take an action, whether it had, it's very debatable whether it had much basis in the lawsuit would have had much basis in court at all. I've gotten several emails to say that he would have had no leg to stand on in court. Um, but what he felt was that he was sort of being attacked by a former city council member who was currently a city council member when all this happened. And his direct quote was, "I was in a position to say, we can't keep doing this. We can't." Um, I had to look at the next chief, other city leaders. And it's unfortunate that we're even talking about this right now, he said. But I want to make sure that when you hire a leader to run a certain department within our city, then you have to let them run the department. Um, and so, that is really what it came down to. And um, there's room for disagreement on whether that was enough, that should have been enough for him to threaten legal action against the city. Ultimately, the courts would have had to play that out, and instead, the city signed an agreement with him, or a settlement with him, that in which the city admitted no fault of its council member or of anybody on the staff, and Chief Jennings got his severance package essentially in various forms. This $305,000 settlement.
Now, I mean, we've reported here on Live Impact News and on TV on WCNC Charlotte the fact that FOP actually just started today. It's no confidence voting, so that's happening in person at their lodge and also online. And we've pointed out the fact that this is a largely symbolic vote. But I mean, did he comment anything on that? Whether he felt like he could be losing the confidence of the men and women he leads? Did he reflect on that at all with you?
Not publicly, he wouldn't have. I mean, we talked about it for a long time, but no, he never said, I've lost the confidence of people in the rank and file or anything like that. I think the way he explained it, he said there are a lot of officers who actually, the controversy comes down to vests, outer carrier vests. And he says, there are a lot of officers who don't want them, and you just don't hear from them. And so that's his perspective on it, and that's what he presented to me. He never named, he never said a bad word about the FOP. He never spoke former city councilman Tarek Bakari's name. He never mentioned his name. He only called him a former councilman or something like that in my interview. So no, he didn't take any shots at anybody else in the interview directly, I would say. And I
You
think
brought up the fact that
oh, I was just going to say, he knows that his officers are a part of that FOP, and so, he would not he would never, I don't think, knowing Johnny Jennings now like I do, uh, there's nothing there, he would never take a public shot at them, I don't think.
Now, you brought up before the fact that he appears to be, as you put it, thoughtful about his legacy. What did he tell you as far as what he thinks or maybe hopes that his legacy will be here for the city of Charlotte over, I guess, his time as leading of the police department in the last few years?
Yeah, he focuses a lot on this customer service initiative that he installed in 2021, or that the department installed in 2021, where it's you try to be the best part of somebody's worst day, is how he put it. Uh, he focused a lot on trying to rebuild the relationships with the community following the 2020 protests surrounding the death of George Floyd. Um, Clearly, in 2020, throughout the country, police departments around the country needed to rebuild their relationships with their community. And he initiated this customer service initiative, and he wanted to have a fleet of officers who were, quote, day makers, in his this is how he put it. And he wants to be remembered as the uh, as the police chief who made his police force the nicest police force in the country. Um, and, that's what he wants. And I can assure you that in a 2,000 person department, there are probably a lot of officers who who wouldn't want that to be their legacy, who would want it to be something like tough on crime or something like that. But you know, the point of my story was just to let him talk, and that is what he wanted. And there's room for disagreement from politicians, from the FOP, from everybody about whether that's the appropriate legacy to strive for. But that was the legacy that Chief Jennings strove for.
Now, we've talked a lot about, things that were actually said in the interview, but I'm kind of curious, as someone who sat down in a room with him, to talk about this big announcement, this big development, and, the end of this chapter for Chief Jennings. What was his mood like? What was his tone like? Did you sense that there was a bit of sadness that it was coming to an end in this form and fashion, or how did he strike you as far as his demeanor?
He seemed like he was somebody who just wanted to talk about it. Um, in the beginning, I think he was nervous, and it was kind of a. And I told him, I said, I just want this to be a conversation. Of course, CMPD was recording it, so it was, we had microphones in front of us, so it was kind of weird. But eventually we were able to break down. We talked about our kids and things like that. I have two sons; he's got three. Um, we were able to sort of reach a place where he started to feel comfortable, and he started to say things that maybe he didn't think he was going to say in the interview. And by the end, at the end of the interview, I think he was tense. He came into the interview tense, but by the end of the interview, he seemed he seemed a lot lighter. And I think he's in a very tense situation now where he served for 33 years, and he's got a lot of people in the public in this city who were infuriated that he got a settlement package of 300 and some $1,000. And I think he felt like, once they see the details of the settlement package, and whether this is true or not, he believed that once people saw the details of the severance package, that they would be less, they would they would feel better about what the package was, and that he would be happier that it's out there. And I think he just felt, I don't know, he felt like somebody who had bottled something up for a long time and didn't know how to say it, and he knew he didn't. I've mentioned in the story he's kind of ill-equipped for the modern media world, which is he's not on social media very much. He's not ready to throw punches, on Twitter or Facebook in the comments or anything like that. Um, and so he felt like he hadn't been able to talk about it publicly. And so he felt, he seemed to feel a lot better afterward. And, you know, whether it's going to help with his legacy, whether it is going to help with how the public feels about his settlement or not, And I believe this to be true for, you, me, and everybody. When you go through something, you feel better when you talk about it. And I think he felt better after he talked about it.
Yeah. We know things can kind of fester in the darkness and in the quiet. So, I mean, it's really an enlightening article that, what you've put together for folks, not just looking at the specific instance, this moment in time of this chapter closing, as we mentioned, for the chief of police, but also looking back at his life. And you alluded to this before, the fact that he was an Army brat and he played football, and so that does seemingly play a lot of role in how he operates his life, to this day. So I just encourage folks, if you want a nice read where you feel like you learn a lot, check out Michael's story in the Charlotte Optimist. Michael Graff, thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything you would like to leave our Live Impact News viewers with before we say goodbye?
No, I'm just grateful for the time that you spent with me. It's um, for those of us who aren't, don't talk in sound bites and things like that, it's really nice to have a place to work through thoughts while we talk. And so thank you for taking the time.
Well, we're so glad to have you. And once again, really great reporting. You broke the news that lots of folks were trying to get here in this market, in this city. So, Michael, thanks
Also,
so
I
much.
felt bad about, sorry to interrupt, but I felt terrible about that. I didn't want to ruin people's Sunday night on Memorial Day, but I was like, that's when I publish. I don't know. So thanks. I hope I didn't ruin too many nights of news people in town.
Oh, no, you did fantastic. And as you know, the news doesn't, it can happen whenever, right? So we just have to report it when it comes. And as we all know, it happened on a holiday weekend, but really shining a light on a topic that lots of folks wanted to know about. So, Michael, thank you so much. Come back and visit anytime.
Happy to. Thank you.
All right, and folks, here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we pointed this out before earlier on our stream. Our Julie Kay is picking up the story for our evening newscasts. We'll see her first reporting coming up at 4 o'clock, but of course 5 and 6 o'clock. And she did mention the fact that we are getting some new information too, new statement from the state auditor's office, which we talked about at length. The state auditor had been looking into, I guess, whispers, rumors, social media commentary about this alleged settlement, which now we know is confirmed, a $305,000 settlement, reading more like a separation agreement for CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings, who will now step down at the end of the year. We'll continue to follow for you here on Live Impact News.